What is up, all you... Well, I guess it wouldn't be GBA people. This is actually going to be an introduction for a new league that I'll be competing in. I'll be taking part, along with 21 other coaches, in the United Battle Championship. It is going to be a mandatory upload every Sunday, starting July 14th. It's a dual draft, so essentially it's 11 and 11, each have separate drafts. So if you draft Latios, someone else can draft Latios and you would face it. Unlike, it's very different than the GBA and a bunch of other leagues. Essentially, it includes many bigger names. It's run by Adam, the Bee's Knees, and CJ, one of the analysts. It includes people such as the Verd, another GBA analyst, Rizzy Pow, Baby Eric, someone who I've competed against in the CCL. Names that I'm familiar with and names I'm not familiar with. Different teams of different varieties. But I'll be competing. It's going to be a league that I'm going to, just stay privy with and compete in the meantime, while the GBA is, of course, in remission until whenever it is that we decide to start up, whether it's before or after Ultra Sun and Moon. But let's going to go over my team. It was a price style league as compared to the free draft style that I've done, or a set tiering system. Each mon, of course, has a price, and you have an allotted amount that you can work with. And of course, if you choose to draft, I believe the restriction was at least 8, at the most 12. And you're going to see that basically I did a decent job at allotting how many points I utilized to draft the various mons that I felt were going to be very effective. So starting off, I was pick, I believe, 10 or 11. I might have had the wheel for the first round. So I made one pick right into another. Yeah, that's right, I had the wheel. So my first pick overall is going to be Megalopony. A mon that I did not expect, when we're talking about megas here, to go all the way, 10 picks without being chosen. As a matter of fact, I think there was a lot of things that might have been a bit questionable before. I don't have the draft sheet right in front of me. But I do remember there were various picks that had gone before Megalopony that, as I'm sitting there, I kind of think to myself, well, I'm not quite sure that mons of certain calibers are gonna drop their way to me. And lo and behold, happened to get Megalopony, and I'm very thankful, because it is, of course, a very, very, very prolific mon, and a mon that I've never used before, but a mon that I've always wanted to use. Obviously, I would go after something like Huron Black before I would go after something like Megalopony, but in this case, it's certainly something that I look at. It's fast. It's one of the very few mons that's dual stabs are completely unresisted across the entire metagame. And, of course, in the draft format, there's only so few times that you're going to face, Lander's Therian or Skarmory or other defensive type things that are going to pretty much hard stop a Megalopony. But I picked up Megalopony, and knowing me always going offensive, I decided to then kind of match that with another mon that I actually have used before, and a mon I'm very familiar with and comfortable using, and that's going to be Latios. So two very fast mons, one on the physical side, one on the special side. Of course, two mons that have potential utility options, not just sheer offense, something like Huron Black. Latios to me is probably one of the most reliable defoggers in the entire metagame. Not super effectively affected by rocks, immune to spikes, can handle its own for the most part, and even set up versus a lot of problems. I think it's also a good assist to Megalopony, namely because Megalopony is weak to both Psychic and Fighting, two things that Latios can, of course, take care of. Latios, also fast, also very wide variety in terms of how you can bring it to a match. You could pretty much allow these two to just go straight offensive and bop things, but I could also then, separate it and make Latios a supportive defogger, toxic, heal bell to an extent. Megalopony can, of course, be, sub-baton pass set. This league, as compared to the GBA, does allow you to pass one stat to various mons, so in my mind, there can be some support options, baton passing type things, and again, it appeals to me, these two mons right off the bat. Two mons, again, I did not expect it. Maybe Latios to an extent, but not Megalopony to get to me. That's going to be my first two picks. Then, of course, I had to wait about 30 picks to get to mine. I know a lot of things that were going to go that I necessarily didn't think I was going to get. I kind of wanted to go after something like Lando T or Necrozma, even something, I wanted Skarmory to an extent. So I thought maybe Skarmory plus Latios would be cool, but that seems a bit redundant. As a matter of fact, not Skarmory specifically, but I did kind of have my app on Nidoqueen. That went right before I was going to draft. Then I started looking around, and I noticed at about pick 26, I was pick 33, I see Fortress goes. And I'm looking through the draft board, I'm seeing, you know, I've always wanted to use this mon, but I never had the opportunity, namely because it's always paired with a very specific threat, and it's always used in a very specific way across many leagues that I've been in, and it's always something that doesn't stand alone as a good mon unless you choose to make it as such. And in this league, the UBC, if you draft Weather, you'll see where I'm going with this. If you draft Weather, you actually have a buff up on points for the mon that would potentially abuse that Weather. So say you draft like Pelipper, Kingdra would cost more. If you draft Tyranitar, you draft Hippowdon, in this case, Excadrill would cost more. Now what I'm looking at, and I mentioned specifically Fortress, because Fortress went early as a spinner, and then I see Excadrill and I go, holy crap, that's a good spinner. Probably one of the top spinners, I would say, in the league, besides like Mega Blastoise, potentially Starmie. I'd even put Tentacruel up in that group. And I look at it and I go, holy crap, that's a good spinner. I'm going to take it. And I've never used Drill before. I've actually never used two of these mons before, Drill or Lot. But then I decide to, you know, settle back where Drill provides spin, it provides Swords Dance, a good Scarfer, Mold Breaker, potential Sand. You know, I could set up manual Sand with other mons later in the draft. I look and I go, okay, well now I want a very good reliable wall, just so that I don't have to focus as much on my walls, because using Latios plus this mon that I'm going to draft next, the mon that's available, I can then kind of start focusing more on offense or other utility that allows me to still stop certain problems that I've seen in the past. And that's going to be Melodic. Round 4 Melodic was something, again, not... These 4 picks I did not expect to get, especially late in the, you know, where my positioning was in the draft. Melodic, of course, we saw how good it was when John was using it in the GBA. We saw how good it is when I was using it back in Season 6 of the GBA, in accordance to my Starmie as well as Jellicent, because fucking gotta have 3 water types. Basically, Melodic to me is something that's very steadily, it's good, you know, and with the whole burn nerf, Flame Orb Melodic is actually a problem for, in some cases. If I can activate the Flame Orb, again, I'll use it as knockoff fodder, it's going to be able to stop, and basically Melodic, what it's going to be able to do is we're going to be able to hard check and stop, otherwise, things that would be a problem thus far on a very, I guess, supposedly, potentially fighting weak roster. Latios plus Melodic can take on physical fighting problems, can take on special problems, because they're both good reliable walls, and it's a good basis to then build on for the rest of the draft. So as a result, I pick up those two. I'm very happy with this roster thus far, and I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, well, the prices for each of these mons fall as such. Mega Lopunny costs 17, and then Latios costs 15. Excadrill costs 14 without the tax. Melodic costs 12, and I'm looking and I go, well, those things all, for the most part, they basically cost a lot, but I was still in a very good position with my points, and I didn't want to overspend, but I also wanted to be rational and smart with how I proceeded to then spend the rest of my points as the draft continues. I'm going down, and I see things like Infernape went right after Melodic, a very solid pick. Didn't fit my team because I already had Mega Lopunny. You know, we see something like Greninja goes. I like using Greninja. I would have used it on this team, but it was not getting to me. I was either going to select Greninja or I was going to be selecting Melodic, and I thought Melodic fit a better spot. I didn't want 3 fighting weak mons and have to then patch up that hole early in the draft. We see things like Tangrowth, Vaporeon, Roserade, and Decidueye, 2 things that I definitely wanted, but Decidueye goes, and then Roserade goes, or vice versa. I liked Roserade, but I figure I could, if it went, it wasn't the biggest deal. I wanted some Spike support, I wanted some T-Spike support. Roserade is probably one of the best in the business at doing both, and I figure I could patch that up, that problem up, or that miss later, moving along in the draft. Now, mine comes up, and then Florges goes right before me. I wanted to pick Florges, but if it went, it wasn't the biggest deal, because I ended up settling for Togekiss. Now, if you notice already, Togekiss and Latios can be defoggers, as well as Excadrill. And I look and I think Togekiss is a very solid fighting check. It's also a very good fairy for the most part. Has pivot, has setup options, has choice options. It's a decently enough hard hitter. It's a Serene Gracemon, so I could, you know, be that problem Pokemon that could flinch things and otherwise, you know, snag some burns. You know, T-Wave and all that stuff, Body Slam. Basically, Togekiss is another Pokemon I haven't used in about 3 or 4 seasons. I think I used in the CCL back in like season 5 or 6. And basically, I just wanted to use it again, you know, and I think it complemented, it fit very well in this team so far. It gives me 3 solid walls to an extent, and of course it counters some of the problems that were already forming on this team. But then I decided to match that, and this is a pick that I was okay with at the time, but I had potentially missed a huge pick looking at it. I'm looking through, and I believe at this point I was drafting. My best friend from college was down, and he was visiting for the week. And I'm drafting, you know, looking at points, how much things cost. Togekiss, like I said, had cost, well, I didn't say yet, but cost 13. This Mon, I'm looking at it, cost 11 points. There was a Mon that was available that cost 12 points that I ended up overseeing until, you know how like when you're drafting and you look at what's available on the board and you're kind of, you know, you make a choice and you go, ah, fuck, and you see the Pokemon that you could have taken, right? And I look and I go, alright, well, I end up taking Salazzle. Nothing wrong with Salazzle. It's a great special attacker. It gives me 2 special attackers to 2 physical offensive threats. You know, obviously all 4 of these things can set up, and all things, for the most part, can end up really putting hurt on things based on the matchup, based on how I'm able to pivot out. We see that, you know, Togekiss can pivot out, but these 4 Mons are going to be able to put on a lot of pressure to the opponent because, you know, it's very difficult to settle or at least prepare for all 4 of them, and then obviously you're going to build a roster from there. But Salazzle I know is very frail. Again, something that I addressed in my GBA recap. And it's something that when I drafted it, I went, oh shit, there's a Mon that was available that I'm going to end up picking up in place of Salazzle. But I'll go, the free agency begins week 3. I've already made the claim, and you'll see it when week 3 does roll around. Or the beginning of week 3, so the end of week 2. But Salazzle, again, very fast threat. Fire Poison is also something a lot like Mega Lopunny. It's unresisted across the meta for the most part, and it can put a lot of hurt to any given roster, assuming there's a good matchup for it. I do like Corrosion, so it can toxic things like Toxapex, Steel types like Skarmory, or you know, other various problems that Salazzle couldn't otherwise toxic. Something like Alolan Muck, per se. So Salazzle, I'm very excited to use, and I know it's fast, so it adds just more speed, more power to this roster, and allows me to then proceed on, because I already have the hazard removal, so Salazzle isn't necessarily super threatened like it would be otherwise to, you know, against various Pokemon that are going to set up spikes and rocks and stuff, and I can't get rid of it, which has been a problem I've had in other seasons, other leagues that I would like to fix, and which I think I'm doing very well in this league. So at this point, you know, I have 6 very high-costing Mons, and I have to start slowing down with my point consumption, but at this point, very content with what I've drafted so far. What I've selected are not only threatening, but they're also good utility and a wide variety of what they're going to be providing, what they're going to be doing, who other, you know, that other Mons that can assist in, but these things specifically are going to be able to handle those problems. So we go down after I select, you know, Salazzle and Togekiss, and you know, different things get selected. Not a lot of things that I was necessarily like eyeing up. Torrentee goes at this point, a Mon that I've liked using, but I wouldn't draft on this team. And we go down, and basically a Mon that I've seen been used very effectively gets to me. And this Mon is going to be another Heal Bell, another Cleric support, but another wall that I could also, you know, coincide with Latias and Melodic. That's going to be Miltank. It's going to be a second Rocker. It's also going to be another second Cleric, and it's going to be a very reliable wall that can, you know, has self-healing and has other utility things that I believe other Pokemon kind of lack. And of course it's fast. It's faster than Arcanine. Explain that, please. I don't understand. Miltank, we saw how mono used in the GBA. We've seen how it's used and been used in other leagues, and I have always wanted to use it myself, and I got the chance to do so. I like how I'm pairing up the defensive options, and how I'm also using it. I can potentially use it as an offense mod. So we then go to where I'm going to start saving up some points and start hitting the single digits, because Miltank costs, let's see, Miltank ended up costing me 8 points, and then I figure I can probably go after one more Pokemon that costs double digits, and that Pokemon is going to be Galvantula. Fast electric type for the most part. I do like the fact that now I'm getting sticky webs up, because I don't necessarily need to dump off the sticky webs for defog, but it's also very good in a pinch to, otherwise slow down problems that might be Scarf, which allow Mega Lopunny to thrive, that might be faster than things like Latias, or even potentially Salazzle, things like Excadrill without the sand. Provides me an opportunity to set up, or allows me to late game, go for Swords Dance, and if a Scarfer comes in, or if a Pokemon that would naturally be faster over base 88 or over base 110, okay, well the sticky webs are up, now you're slower, and I can just go ahead and then start bopping things. Galvantula, with Tinted Lens, Compound Eyes, I could go ahead and, abuse its electric stabs. I can Volt Switch, which gives me pivot options with Togekiss, because I can obviously Baton Pass, Mega Lopunny can Baton Pass, and overall I liked Galvantula. I've never used it before in a league. I've seen that it's good, but it needs support. In this situation, I think it has that support. It's not going to be super threatened out by rocks or by fire moves when I have something like Excadrill and, of course, Melodic, and it's just, I think it could be effective, because now I'm starting to stack a little bit more hazards, a little bit more support to these other offensive mons. We go down from there. Latios gets selected 79, which is remarkable that it got selected so late. Nothing really standing out to me as I move my way towards where I was picking. Again, I don't have a grass type yet. Delmise gets selected, but I was not going to go after Delmise, especially because it is so slow. And being a spinner, it's good, but I think Delmise there's a lot to be desired with Delmise, because it does get taken advantage of sometimes with how slow it is, and knockoff and all that. And the fact that even though it's good and it's strong, I believe its only real good set is AV. So we get to me, and I look and I'm like, you know what? Now I want to get some spikes. Now I want to get some support, but I also want to get a mon that I like. I love using. I love seeing how it's used, and it's Cooper's. It's what he was known for the most part back in Season 3, I believe, and even this past season prior to him, leaving the GBA, and that's going to be Cloyster. Cloyster, a Pokemon that I've always wanted to use. Shell Smash, I thought was super nice on this team. Shell Smash, plus ice coverage, plus I can put up spikes, T-spikes. It's another spinner, not most prolific spinner, but an option, so to say. Cloyster on this roster, I believe, is, while it's slow, I could smash up, and I can then just start pounding things the same way I can do that with the other mons that I've explained before this. I then back that up with Liepard, a dark type. Again, another Pokemon that I've seen used relatively decently. I like its options. I liked how it was used back in the Sun and Moon meta, even before that in the Black and White meta. Copycat, it gets Play Rough, it gets Knockoff, it gets U-Turn, it gets T-Wave. The Prankster, obviously being nerfed because it can't be used against other dark types, it gets Play Rough. So if I predict something like that to come in, or even if all the Fairy types running around, it gets Gunk Shot. It can pivot out, it can knock off, it can gunk shot, it can play rough, it can T-wave, it can copy moves, it can do all these things that I very much so like, and it also can set up some sets of weather to assist in other situations. But Liepard is a mon that I've always wanted to use. I actually like the fact that I'm going to be able to use it. It is a good knockoff user, then I can pivot out. It's not the most offensive thing, but it's also not the most, it's not slow, so it's very effective. So Liepard is going to be nicknamed after the cat that we have. It's a little asshole sometimes. Our cat's name is Fish. Go figure. For some of you who are aware, who've heard him before in the power rankings when I was with Burke, or otherwise, it is what it is, and it's funny. So moving on from there, now we kind of get in some budget picks. Cloyster cost me 9 points, Galvantula cost me 10 points, Liepard cost me 5 points. Now we're going to get into two mons that I just kind of threw out there, one of which I've always wanted to use, but I've always kind of been scrutinized for because it's not the best, especially in a free draft. I'm going to pick up Leafeon. Now Leafeon, for the most part, has always been overlooked as kind of a garbage Pokemon because it's not a good Wish Passer with base 60 HP. It's not the most effective grass type because grass defensively is not really that good. Fire, bug, ice, all very prolific. Maybe not bug as much, but definitely ice and fire. Not necessarily a problem based on this roster, but I could use it as another cleric. It is a good physical attacker, base 95 speed. With the fact that it access to Swords Dance, Knockoff, Leaf Blade, Return Frustration, Dig. If Z moves were allowed on all Pokemon, this would be a very low-cost Z user. But unfortunately, just like the GBA, we're only allowed to designate one Pokemon as a Z Pokemon. Leafeon to me is always something I've wanted to use. It is a very good mon. I think it's a very good defensive wall, and surprisingly, I want to see if it is either garbage like people say it is, or it's actually good, and I can kind of shut up people who have said, no, don't draft it, it's trash. Finally, I have 1 point left, and I figured to myself, I don't know what I want, but I do know that there's things here that's like I can go after a rock type, and that's basically what I'm going to do. And I was split between two. I either was looking at Sudowoodo, which costs 1 point, or 2 points even, and Pupitar. Now Pupitar, I end up picking Pupitar over Sudowoodo because I didn't really want like super slow rocks. I know that Sudowoodo is like base 20 or 30 speed. That kind of bothered me. I know Pupitar isn't that all that much better, but it does have access to D-Dance. I do like the fact that I could be that Shed Shell set, so I can run like Rest, D-Dance. I could run like Round or Rock coverage, which otherwise would threaten out things maybe late game. Maybe it could be like a very niche mon, a Sleep Talk, Rest, coverage plus Toxic set. I can use the Shed Shell to, wake back up. It's very good recovery. I can even run some other moves, like Iron Defense and Curse and stuff like that. So overall, I think it's a good option. And it's also another rocker in case I don't want to throw rocks on Miltank, or I don't want to throw rocks on Excadrill. And I could use it in that way. I don't think it's a bad Pokemon. I think it's a very underused Pokemon, overlooked Pokemon, because again, it's an NFE, it's not Tyranitar, but it's good for a point. I figure why not? Better than Sudowoodo. I didn't want to really have that be super slow and get taken advantage of. And while it's okay, I don't think it's really that good, and I didn't really want to bother with it. So also I hate how it looks, so I don't fucking want that thing. But that's going to be the entire roster. Right here is the entire roster. Looking at it, like I stated earlier, I believe that Salazzle was really the only pick that I was kind of about, because there was a better Pokemon available, and I did overlook it, and I kind of was kicking myself afterward, because I'm driving in the car, and I'm looking like, oh fuck, man, and I see that I overlooked it, and it's okay, because I figure, like I said, I'm making a claim for a free agent, and it'll be accessible to me week 3, and also that Pokemon that I will be picking up over Salazzle will end up being my Z user as well. You'll see. And it's pretty heat, I will say. It's pretty good. So, overall the team, I very much so like this team. It is what I would consider balanced offense. It has options to not only provide stopping power to a lot of other problems, it also provides me the opportunity to then revenge or otherwise bop things that I consider problems in the metagame. We have set up Pokemon in, Lopunny and Salazzle and Latias, Excadrill, Cloyster, Leafeon to an extent. Overall, just a lot of things that are otherwise going to provide a lot of offensive pressure, but then defensive things like Melodic, Togekiss, Latias, Miltank, Leafeon, that are going to stop problems that otherwise would be a hurt to this team. I'm very excited to use this team. I'm very excited to compete this season in the UBC. I think it's going to be a very fun little off-season thing that will still keep me fresh. That isn't just the CCL, which I've perennially competed in, which haven't really uploaded because it's more casual. Also, it's Showdown, so some seasons have been better than others. And this is also going to be Showdown, but I think it's going to be very fun. Week 1, I go up against Baby Eric. He once was part of the CCL, is part of the PPL. Yes, because he was in that whole intro spiel with Mono when I watched his videos. This is going to be a fun season. I hope you guys are very excited. I know I am. And until then, I will see you guys for week 1. Our first match is forced to go up on the 14th. This is, like I said, upload mandatory, hence why I'm doing a team builder or a draft recap. I will be doing team builders before my matches, and you guys will get the full experience of this roster as well as this season. I will see you guys very soon. I'll still be uploading. You'll be getting a series of many different league matches, 2 actually, leading into the 14th when I end up having week 1 for this league. So, uploading for this league. So, until then, I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching, as always. I know I have longer videos. This is the draft recap. You know, I had the draft analysis, vice versa for the GBA. 2 very long videos. Leave your comments and how you guys feel about this team, and I will talk to you guys down there. Until then, see you guys later.